Hey everyone, so I've been thinking a lot about training alone. I'm very experienced with this. For most of my 14 years of doing parkour, it has been alone, by myself, teaching myself how to do parkour. So I wanted to give you guys tips for those of you who have to train alone, how you can teach yourself safely and learn parkour. Now first off, I would recommend that you do try and find a group to train with friends. Maybe try and get your friends to learn parkour with you, or just have someone come watch you. That will be the safest option. But sometimes I know it just doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you just can't find a local community or you can't get your friends into it. So this advice pretty much applies to people who know they have to train by themselves. But some of these tips will also just be beneficial for anyone who's trying to learn parkour. So one of the #1 obstacles people run into trying to learn parkour by yourself, which I've run into, is the self-conscious awareness of people watching you. When you're going out in public or going to a place where other people are there, it can feel pretty uncomfortable, a little bit anxiety-inducing to do this weird, unpractical, well, not to us, but to other people, unpractical movement in the environment you're in. So how do you train parkour by yourself when there's people watching or you're out in public? Well, that's just one of the mental obstacles you have to overcome, just like the many other mental obstacles in learning parkour, like learning to overcome fear, learning to use your mind to control your body in the way you want it to control it. A lot of it is just becoming mindful and focused on yourself and on your own body. If you're just only focused on yourself and what you're doing, it's easier to just kind of tunnel vision everyone out. So that all you're thinking about is what you need to learn, the obstacle you're trying to overcome. And ultimately, it's practicing not caring what people think about you, which is a real life skill, learning how to be more comfortable with who you are and not worrying so much about what everyone around you is thinking of you, because for the most part, most people aren't thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. Now obviously there's people who can be judgmental and things like that, but once you're out of their sight, once they don't see you anymore, they're done thinking about you. They don't care about you. I don't say that in a bad way. I say that in a way that should make it easier for you to not care about what people think of you when you're training and doing things. It's taken me a lot of years to get comfortable with this idea, but it started out in the beginning with just basically meditating, being mindful of myself, my environment, and then just honing in, focusing on what I need to accomplish and blocking everything out. Just like you have mental fears, mental blocks that stop you from doing things, social anxiety is one of those things. And just like you can overcome obstacles physically and mentally, you can overcome social obstacles mentally and physically by applying the same idea to it. Think of it as a mental obstacle, a mental challenge you have to overcome to not care what those people think, or to not let them get in your head so it's not distracting you while you're training. Now it might be hard at first, but you can actually practice doing that. If there's people around and you're just walking somewhere, think about just doing a little vault. You know, maybe it's a little hop or a vault over a handrail, and then you just keep moving on your way. Now it may feel really weird to do that initially because you know people just saw you do that, but you're never gonna see those people again, and you're just gonna keep moving on, and then they'll blend into the rest of the world, and you'll blend into the rest of the world, and there's no reason to have anxiety about what those people are thinking about you. So what it comes down to is practicing, even if it's just little things, being more comfortable doing unusual things, out of the norm things in public or in the places you plan on training. Which leads me into my next point. Where do you train when you're training by yourself? Now if you have a parkour gym or gymnastics gym or places like that to go to, that's awesome because they're designed for that, so you don't have to worry about feeling weird. But sometimes, once again, those aren't options for everybody, but you still need to go train. And so here are a couple locations I'd recommend you try checking out to train by yourself, where you won't really have to worry about running into issues. The first one is to just find a park. Parks are designed for people to come and recreate, to play, exercise, do things like that. So it's one of the least unusual public places for you to do parkour. You can often find some really interesting and cool things at parks. Like this park here is pretty crazy. It's got these cool beams in the background that aren't meant for climbing on, but I'm gonna climb on them and I'm gonna jump across them because it looks like fun. But then you have simple things like these boulders here that you can just practice simple jumps or vaults, things like that. A lot of it is just getting creative with what you have to train at. Another option is to train at schools. Sometimes schools have walls or handrails, things like that. The only thing I would recommend with training at schools is that you only do it in the off hours of the school, preferably weekends, so you don't have to worry about really anyone being at the school. You definitely don't want to do it during school hours, especially if you're an adult like me. You'll get kicked out, maybe have the police called on you. But if it's off school hours, I train at schools a lot and I've never had a problem getting kicked out or any issues training at schools. So now that you're in the mindset of training by yourself and comfortable with doing that, and now you've found a location to practice and train, what are the best methods for helping you learn parkour when you can only do it by yourself? You have no one there to give you tips, to teach you. One of the first things I would recommend is, if you're watching this video, it means you have access to YouTube videos. So watch tutorials, watch some of my videos on how to start parkour, or if you already know how to do parkour, just the array of tutorials that are out there where you can learn the variety of things there are to learn. You can watch it, visualize your own body doing it while you're watching the video, and then take that information as you go out and practice. I'll include a link in the description to my playlist of all my tutorials I've ever done, so you can browse through it, look for things you want to learn. So now that you know what you want to learn, and you've kind of learned the process of how to learn that specific move, now it's a matter of practicing it, and practicing it safely, because when you're by yourself, you don't want to get injured, especially if there's no one going to be around to help you out. So you want to make sure you're extra safe and primarily stick to things that you're very comfortable with and can slowly progress up to. Because you have no one there watching you to give you tips or to watch them do the trick, one thing I found extremely useful in helping myself learn parkour is to actually film myself doing the moves and then watching the playback of the move. Sometimes I'll feel like I'm doing a trick really good, feels amazing, and then I watch it back on video, I'm like, oh crap, that looks like garbage, but this is how I can improve it. Other times I'm doing a trick, I'm like, man, this trick just feels like garbage, but I'll film it anyway, see how I can improve. I end up filming it, I'm like, oh, it looks better than I thought, but I can still visualize and see what I'm doing wrong and how I can change it. Because oftentimes, while you're performing the trick, it's hard to recognize every little aspect of your body and what it's doing and what it could be doing wrong. So being able to film yourself and then watch the playback, especially if you have a slow motion option, will be even more helpful. You can really see what you're doing wrong, and especially if you've had a tutorial to compare it to, you can compare it side by side, how you can improve and match the trick that you're trying to learn. You don't need a fancy camera or anything like that. If you just have a phone that can record video, or even if it's just a really crappy camera or crappy phone, as long as you can record yourself, it doesn't need to be quality, it just needs to be visible enough that you can see the motion of your body as you're moving. What I personally use that is extremely helpful is I got one of these little tripods with a little phone attachment, so that while I'm out training, I can just set this up and just practice my tricks and not worry about it. And if I like what I did, I can post it on Instagram later or make it into a YouTube video. But you don't even need one of these tripods. You can also just find creative ways in your environment to set up the camera. So sometimes I'll set up my phone against a rock like this. I'll do a couple test shots to make sure it's angled the way I want to, and then I'll go do the trick wherever I'm filming it, and just get creative with the way you can set up your camera and learn from it. Also, when learning by yourself, make sure that you do progressions. To do it safely, start out with very basic movements, things that you already know how to do or are pretty comfortable with, and then just slowly branch out from that, stepping it up just a little bit at a time, and then get very comfortable and skilled at that next step up, and then just continue those steps so that each progression you're always in control and comfortable with what you're doing. There's never a point where you're just full on daredevil going crazy, like, okay, I've never done this trick, but I'm gonna just try it for the first time and huck myself, hope it works out, because oftentimes it doesn't work out if you do it with that type of mindset. It's all about progression, baby steps, especially if you're training by yourself. Now maybe you do have friends to train with and you have groups that teach you. What is the benefit of training by yourself? Is there a benefit if you have the option to train with people? I think there is an extremely great benefit to train by yourself. For one, I train differently when I'm by myself. When I'm with people, I kind of get caught up in the moment of pushing each other and trying crazy things and, you know, just having a lot of fun. I love that. I love the environment of training with other people. But when I'm by myself, that's when I'm really in the zone. I'm more zen, more focused, and more just thoughtful and aware of my movements and my body and the environment around me. It's a completely different experience when you're training by yourself, and it makes you feel more like that solo ninja who's just, you know, running across the rooftops and exploring the world. It also helps you develop a certain discipline, a discipline to just be able to move and exercise and train even when you're by yourself. So even if you have friends to train with, I would recommend that occasionally you try training by yourself. Remember to be safe though when you're training by yourself, because it's a whole different experience and you can really gain some insights and develop some interesting skills and creativity just from training by yourself. So there are some basic tips to help you practice parkour by yourself and how to teach parkour yourself when you don't have anyone to teach you or help you out. Remember to train safe and to be smart about it. Don't go to sketchy locations by yourself. Keep it to fairly public areas like parks or schools, things like that. Just have fun with it, you know, just be yourself. Don't worry about what people think of you, and let me know in the comments if you train by yourself or if you train with friends and what you think of each experience. But otherwise, be sure to subscribe for more videos and tutorials and training vlogs. Once again, thanks for watching everyone, and we'll see you next time.